The Detroit Lions draft has completely changed, and we have talked about this on this channel, but I want to go a little more in depth in this video about just the method to the madness with Brad Holmes, and he is a guy that has said and made it very, very clear. We are not trying to win championships, the championship of March and April. We are trying to win championships for January and February. I think he said December and January. I was like, hey, there's a Super Bowl in February. But anyways, he's made it very clear. We don't want just headlines right now. We want to make moves that make us better long term. So the Lions have finished. Well, I'm not saying they've finished yet in free agency. So sorry. I don't know what's going on this morning. I got a little tickle. All right. But anyways, a little tickle in my throat. Sorry. Don't turn off the video because I was dumb right there. All right. For those of you who haven't yet been part of this, watch the video. See if you like it. If you like it at the end, feel free to subscribe. If you've been watching for a while, we are pushing hard for 20,000 subs. We want that good sub base. I don't even know if subs do anything, but I know it helps you see our videos more often. And we, of course, want to be your go-to, if not one of your go-to sources for Lions content. So Tim Twentyman put together something that was pretty cool here, and he talked about how free agency prediction or affects predictions for the Lions in the NFL draft. We're going to get into that. But here's what the Lions did in free agency. They went out and they filled holes in their roster. They just went out and filled holes in their roster. And so what you see here is they went out, they got, the most recent one was Kevin, Zeitler, you know, I mean, just 100 different names. You call them whatever you want, right? And then they, on the defensive line, added Marcus Davenport. They added DJ Reader. They added Carlton Davis via trade at corner. They added Amik Robertson in free agency. They have just released Cam Sutton, so that changes some things. I think cornerback goes back on the board as like kind of a need. But Brad Holmes has made it clear in the past, and he tries to use free agency to set himself up to draft for talent. That's what he wants to do, and that's what he has done, and you are starting to see the mock drafts go that way. All right, so Daniel Jeremiah, Kool-Aid McKinstry, these are all first-round picks. All right, Lions end up going with talented outside corner to pair with his former Alabama teammate, slot corner Brian Branch. It's just who's the best available player. Mel Kiper has us going wide receiver, Xavier Legette. All right, now Xavier Legette is Deebo Samuel. I mean, like, he is. And so it was one of those things where it's like, hey, would you like that on your team? Would you? I think you might. All right. I think I would like that too. All right. We have Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of Florida State. So, like, here's what you're starting to see. All right. And then you have Zach Frazier, interior offensive line. So out of the gate, you're already seeing multiple positions that could be picked. I think people now look at our roster and they say, if there is something that is needed, it is a third wide receiver or a third corner or a second corner, to be honest with you at this point, right? So those are the positions of need on the outside because Brad Holmes built in the middle as well already. Then you look at it and it's like, all right, edge rusher is the next need. And then you start going into depth on the offensive line because the interior offensive line especially is getting older. All right, so you go Zach Frazier. All right, why? The Lions have a great center in Frank Ragnow. See, this is a first-round mock. We know the Lions have a great center already, but why? Frazier can slide into guard after the departure of Jonah Jackson, four-time state champion. In other words, he didn't hear about the signing of Zeitler, but it doesn't matter because you need depth there. The question on this, on interior offensive line, is do the Lions believe Colby Sorsdahl is the guard of the future? Only they know the answer to that question. We haven't seen nearly as much as they have. You have a Kamari Lassiter sighting, corner out of Georgia. All right. You need to find corners that play good man coverage. So I think it's interesting. All right, here we have our first edge, Chop Robinson. All right, another offensive lineman, Graham Barton out of Duke. One of these guys may fall. All right, so Graham Barton was a college tackle. He's expected to play guard. But what if he can do both? We always talk about guys who can play center and guard. What about guys who can play guard and tackle? How nice would that be? Do you think the New England Patriots are happy having Michael Onwenu, who came in, I think he was a tackle at Michigan. He did play guard, too, at Michigan, by the way, but he ended at tackle, all right? And then he moved into guard because everybody's like, well, he was a tackle in college, but he's going to be a guard in the NFL. And then now he's back out playing tackle and making good money doing it, and he plays both of those positions well. Now we have another corner, Nate Wiggins. All right? Nate Wiggins gives the room depth. You see that room again, or that word again, depth, depth, depth. Every signing is luxury because it's depth. All right, now we have Darius Robinson. So we have 2 different interior linemen, 2 edge rushers, 3 corners, and 2 wide receivers that have all been mentioned so far. All different. And then we got another for Chop Robinson. And then we finally go for another Kool-Aid McKinstry. All right? I'm just blown away by this. All right, so it depends. What do you want? Like, what do you want? Darius Robinson, he's a half edge rusher, half defensive tackle. All right, he's the kind of guy that Brad Holmes has said he loves to have around. A guy that can stop the run, a guy that can rush the pass, a guy that can rush the pass from the interior on more of those like NASCAR packages, all of that kind of stuff. Like, okay, this makes sense to me. This makes sense. If you want a guy that's just flat out explosive, you go Chop Robinson. That's just a question of what does your coach prefer? What does your GM prefer? Opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. All right. What do you want Aiden Hutchinson to be? Do you want him to continue to be that all-around defensive end? Or do you want to put a phenomenal pass rusher on the other side, or put a phenomenal pass rusher on the other side and have him be that all-around defensive end? Or do you want Aiden Hutchinson to be the guy who's just going to pin his ears back and go after the quarterback? All right. This is great. I mean, it's all over the place. Now we go Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle, Arizona, another tackle. That's the 3rd offensive lineman based on my math, right? This is a guy who could go inside. He could go outside. This could be a eventual replacement either for Zietler, for Glasgow, or for Decker. Like, he can do any of that. Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. All right, another wide receiver has now popped in, Enos Rakestraw. All right, and that's where it ends. Junior out of Missouri. By the way, Adonai Mitchell, just eye-popping numbers at his size and for his size, height, and weight. For him to put together the kind of speed that he has, just eye-popping. You can absolutely do things with him, just like Brian Thomas Jr. And there's a number of those wide receivers in this. Xavier Legette is one of them. Enos Rakestraw, definitely not eye-popping numbers, but the film pops. The film absolutely pops. Go ahead and watch some highlights of him. He's a guy who is a very willing tackler, very willing to be that physical type corner that Aaron Glenn really enjoys, but the top-end speed isn't really there. So it's interesting to see. It's interesting to watch. Here's the way it goes. The Lions have set themselves up to draft for need. So sorry. They've set themselves up to draft for need. So are they going to do it? I think that's the question we're all asking ourselves. And now we get to spend the next month just talking about best players available. How much fun is that going to be? All right. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. See you on the next one.